I'm Matthew, this is Lamorris Cards, and today we're going to be talking about 5 commanders that you can take from casual and bring over into cEDH. I'll be breaking down 5 different commanders that are pretty popular over in casual commander that can be retooled, upgraded a bit, mostly following the same game plan, and brought into cEDH. And we're going to break down what the differences are between some of the key cards you might find over in the lower power side of the format, some of the changes you're going to have to make, and what makes these decks able to be brought into cEDH and play at the highest level of commander. Before we get into that, if you enjoy this video, like, comment, subscribe. If you could, please consider supporting me on Patreon, where you get early access to videos, discounts on all my very cool commander focused merch, as well as getting shoutouts like these really sick people. So consider doing that. Supporting me if you can helps me make more videos like this. I'd like to do more content focusing on sort of bridging the gap between casual and competitive. If that's something you're interested in, please let me know down below. The Command Tower software by Eminence Gaming is perfect for hosting your own TCG events with features such as easy to create event registration for 4-player and 1v1 Swiss-based games. Event management has never been so simple, and it's web-based, so no downloads required. Sign up for just $5 at eminence.events/subscribe. Our first commander is probably the one that has the easiest conversion from casual to cEDH, and that is Yuriko the Tiger Shadow. Yuriko is a very naturally powerful commander that serves as a win condition, a value engine, and also just a recursive, very easy to keep coming out threat. And it makes it this sort of inevitability as the game goes on that eventually the Yuriko is going to come down, it's going to stick, it's going to get a lot of triggers. So Yuriko, for the most part, is very close to how it's built in cEDH. There's going to be a little bit of optimization. We're going to cut a few of the kind of cuter big spells that don't really further our game plan, and we're going to jam in as much free interaction as we possibly can. A lot of Yuriko lists we're running, of course, cards like Force of Will, cards like Fierce Guardianship, cards like Contagion, Commandeer. All of these free are mostly free spells that have higher mana values that can, when triggered off of Yuriko, do a lot of damage. We're going to shy away from some of the bigger ninjas that are tougher to stick down. A lot of the key game plan of Yuriko and cEDH is that you want to get down an early evasive threat, turn 1, turn 2, swing with that threat, ninjitsu and Yuriko, and start to get the value train rolling on Yuriko. The deck is a little bit slower for cEDH, but is very consistent and it's pretty resilient. Again, Yuriko is just hard to keep her down. If you can get this sort of value engine going, you're drawing into that free interaction, you're cutting off some of the ability for your opponents to win while also pressuring life totals, which is actually, if you don't know, surprisingly effective in cEDH. Cards like Ad Nauseam are a key part of this format. Using your life total is a huge aspect of it. Yuriko's incidental value of 3 damage here, 2 damage there, even when you're not hitting huge things, can actually be pretty key and keeping some opponents off balance. Now, this is cEDH, so of course you're going to be running the best win condition in the format, arguably, and that is Thassa's Oracle with Demonic Consultation or Tainted Pact. These are almost sort of backup win conditions in Yuriko, because again, if you just get like 5 ninjas out or something, you're going to kill the table very quickly. Some decks also like to run sort of 1-card win conditions like Doomsday, and some of the crazier Yuriko pilots even do run Ad Nauseam. You know, maybe cutting a few of the higher mana value cards in favor of a card that basically is a 1-card win condition. Some Yuriko lists even choose to run staxier effects like Null Rod, cutting off your opponent's artifacts, because again, those mana rocks are very powerful in cEDH. Been running cards like Cursed Totem, because while this deck is very creature heavy, it's not very creature activated ability heavy. While not the most powerful cEDH deck, it is in very good colors, and it is one of the easiest decks to go from I play this in casual to just bring it straight into cEDH with maybe 10-ish cards to upgrade, and they're all cards that just oomph up your deck. They just make that game plan more tight, more consistent, and that's a lot of cEDH. You're going to be running all of the tutors, you're going to be running all that interaction that maybe your friends in casual don't like so much, but that's the name of the game here, and that's kind of what you have to do. And here's what a cEDH Yuriko deck list might look like. Next on our list, we have Kinnan Prodigy, one of the most powerful Simic commanders ever printed. Looking through on EDH Rec, some of the casual cards and just most popular cards in Kinnan, I was really shocked. You guys are actually really close to how cEDH Kinnan is already built. A lot of the best cards in the deck, like Seedborn Muse, Basalt Monolith, which goes infinite with Kinnan, Rhystic Study. A lot of the even good interaction is just already there. Really, what we're doing here is focusing in on the game plan when we move from casual Kinnan over into cEDH. There still is a bit of an emphasis on Kinnan's ability to flip into very large, powerful creatures. Even over here in cEDH, a lot of the decks choose to run things like Nyx Bloom Ancient, Consecrated Sphinx, some decks running Coma, Nezahal, also Void Winnower, very powerful one over in cEDH. The key thing is we're going to have more of a focus on the effects that we really want. We don't necessarily want just like incremental value and decent stuff. We really want cards that are going to take over the game, cards that are going to help us further our game plan and development quickly, and that are going to interact with our opponent very well. Some key things are we're not going to be running every mana dork, every creature, and every artifact that can tap for mana. We really want to focus in on some of the best ones. So the 1 mana dorks, typical cEDH staples like Mox Diamond, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, all of that stuff that you're going to expect, plus cards like Mox Amber. The 2 mana rocks that kind of make sense, they tap for colored mana. We're not going to go too deep in on those. And then the cards that are going to combo with Kinnan, cards like Basalt Monolith, of course, are going to be in here. We're also using Hullbreaker Horror and Tidespout Tyrant, both as cards that can be flipped into, and also ways that you can generate infinite mana with Kinnan. If you're not sure how those combos work, I have a video here that gives you a very quick rundown on how Kinnan combos work. A lot of casual lists might run cards like Free from the Real and other enchantments that can combo with Kinnan. Most of the cEDH lists kind of skirt around those because they're not great if you don't have a great target with them. And then also we have no ability to tutor for enchantments. So cards like Mirage Mirror, Basalt Monolith, these are all cards that we can tutor for with cards like Trophy Mage. And then the creature half of things that we might want to go for, we can obviously get with cards like Worldly Tutor, Port of Calling if we need to, Neoform, Eldritch Evolution, etc. So we're cutting most of the 2 mana dorks. We're still going to run things like Bloom Tender that are just really powerful. And we're not going to be running these sort of like incremental value cards that aren't crazy. Seedborn Muse is crazy. The One Ring is crazy. Rhystic Study, crazy. Cards like Biomancer's Familiar, which are really more just getting little bits of value and aren't really furthering our game plan, not so much. We're not here to just flip. We're really here to get mana in the early game, generate value, secure a position our opponents are struggling to win, and then we are able to get a win. Usually this deck is going to win with Finale of Devastation, a key card that you might be including in your casual decks. Thrasios, sort of the main outlet for infinite mana. Once you get infinite Kinnan activations, you're going to do infinite Thrasios, draw your whole deck, and then win however you want from there. Again, usually with Finale of Devastation. So really all we're going to be doing is chopping a bit of the not so great dorks and rocks and getting in that good interaction. Cards like Veil of Summer, Force of Will, etc. Stuff you kind of expect similar to what we're doing in Yuriko. And we're just going to bring that over here and make a deck that is very fast, very controlling, and has just a ton of options to win the game and just great engines to set up. This is one of the most fun decks in cEDH in my opinion, and it's also one of the most powerful. Kinnan has consistently been a top 4 level deck in cEDH tournaments. Pretty easy to get into. Definitely recommend it. And here's what a cEDH Kinnan deck list might look like. Next up, we have Tivit, Seller of Secrets. This one, along with our next one, might be one that is maybe a little bit surprising to you if you're not too used to cEDH. There are high mana value commanders that are very viable in cEDH. Tivit, if you've built it in casual, you probably already know, has a 1-card win con with Time Sieve, allowing you to keep taking extra turns, beating your opponents down. Of course, this is cEDH. You get access to cards like Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation, some of the best win cons that are available in this game. This is a blue-black deck like Yuriko, but also we get access to white. So we get very powerful cards in cEDH like Esper Sentinel, Drannith Magistrate, Ranger Captain of Eos, Grand Abolisher, cards that maybe some of your casual friends don't like too much, especially Drannith. They're just key here. They're a part of cEDH. They are a expected metagame thing that you're going to see, and everybody's just pretty cool with that. Like the other decks, we're going to be adding in lots of interaction. The interaction suite's going to be pretty similar to Yuriko, although here we'll also get very strong cards like Silence because we're adding in white. Tivit has been built a few different ways. There are some decks that run cards like Ad Nauseam to be able to get a big burst of cards to their hand to probably be able to put together a win. A lot of the decks are on the slightly staxier side, running cards like Grafdigger's Cage, the aforementioned Drannith Magistrate, some even running cards like Lavinia. It's not uncommon to also see some of the 2 and 3 or even 4 mana value oriented cards in Tivit. Some lists have started running Talion. Smothering Tithe is surprisingly not a cEDH staple. It's only a card that shows up in certain decks, and it does show up in a lot of Tivit decks. So there's a big focus on both being able to interact early with with your opponents to make sure that they don't win because your game plan is a little bit slower than some of the faster decks in the format, while also just powering out your Tivit really quickly. You run cards like Mana Vault, Grim Monolith potentially, Dark Ritual, Phantasmal Image to copy an opponent's dockside can really help you get out an early Tivit. And once Tivit gets on the board, it's very hard to get rid of in cEDH. You're usually having to spend at least 4 mana due to the ward, and that's usually pretty tough and not very efficient. It's not usually where you want to be. So Tivit getting to come down and stick and continually hit over and over can just generate so much value that it's hard for your opponents to even win, on top of always having that potential to just slam that time sieve and win at any given moment. One of the main things that we're not going to be doing is building around this voting theme that you might see in casual Tivit decks. Most voting cards, not especially powerful. Often they're coming down in the curve before Tivit, or they're wildly expensive like Expropriate, and they're just really not what we're looking to do in cEDH. We're really looking to have that consistent, powerful, focused game plan, and we're not doing sort of cutesier things with voting that really don't give us a lot of value here in this very fast and focused format. You do still see some cards that are popular in casual, like Displacer Kitten. Sheoldred has seen play here. That is definitely a card you could rock again. Pressuring life totals can be pretty good. You get to run those cards that people might not like seeing too much in your casual Tivit decks, like Jeweled Lotus, because early Tivit feels so unbeatable in casual because it is. Early Tivit is actually very hard to beat even in cEDH. So Tivit is another deck that I think if you're playing casual and you want a commander that you're kind of used to, Tivit is probably going to swap out more cards again because you're not doing the voting thing, but you are going to really optimize that Tivit focused game plan. It definitely still is a deck built around the commander. It wants to get its commander in play, keep it in play, keep other people from winning, and do the thing with Time Sieve or just win with Thassa's Oracle. You also get access to a win condition with Teferi and Displacer Kitten. Those cards are very key, very powerful. Being able to do Kitten on Tivit, usually we're going away from cutesy things like that, but the Kitten plus these really powerful enter the battlefield effects is just strong enough in cEDH. It just is. And here's what a cEDH Tivit deck list looks like. Next, we're going to be looking at Atraxa, but not the most popular Atraxa over in casual. Praetor's Voice doesn't really have much merit in cEDH. Proliferate is just not very strong of an effect over here, but getting to look at 10 cards and potentially adding like 6 or 7 to your hand, pretty good. So Atraxa Grand Unifier is a pretty powerful and popular cEDH deck list. One of the key things that this deck gets to do is win using food chain combos. So you can use food chain with a card like Mistveil Griffin, infinitely exiling that card, getting infinite mana, and you can use that on your commander to cast it over and over, exiling it to food chain, putting it in the command zone, recasting it, and getting access to your entire deck and winning, usually again with a Thassa's Oracle. Similar to Tivit, we're not going to be doing kind of cutesy things with flickering, blink effects. Some deck lists do choose to run Ephemerate because that card can be pretty good, and especially on Atraxa, it is very powerful. It's sort of a build your own ad nauseum, but sort of similar to Tivit, we're looking for a focused game plan. We're looking to develop with some of the best mana dorks in the early game, running powerful draw engines like Mystic Remor and Rhystic Study, getting those online to help us get a bunch of cards so that we can make it through into the mid to late game where a deck with a 7 mana commander starts to be a lot more viable. Though of course we do have a lot of cards that can ramp out our Atraxa pretty early. Similar to Tivit, if you can get down Atraxa early, it's pretty strong. And also similar to Tivit, if you can get it down with a Displacer Kitten, it's pretty much unbeatable. You also get access to the best reason to run Golgari colors in cEDH and maybe even Commander, the crazy board wipe / ritual, culling ritual. When you get to use something like that, it makes casting your 7 mana commander not seem so hard at all. We're going to be leaning away from sort of cutesy value. We're not going to be doing any of those 4 mana-ish at the end of your turn flicker a thing, because those cards just aren't really good with most of our deck. We're going to be running good cards like Thassa's Oracle, Esper Sentinel, value engines like Opposition Agent. Again, cards that your friends might not like you for in casual Commander. That's just a part of cEDH. Op Agent in response to a Demonic Tutor, very good. Even in response to a fetch lens, sometimes you got to do it. Cards like Lotus Petal and Elvish Spirit Guide that are just spend a card, make a mana, they're good here in cEDH. You'll see them here, especially again, you have a 7 mana commander, you kind of need all the help you can get getting that out, and you're going to recoup all those card advantage losses with this big influx of cards Atraxa gets you. For the most part, Atraxa and Tivit are actually pretty similar. If you were looking to get into cEDH and you liked both of these, I would say give either of them a try. If you like green, go with Atraxa. It's going to focus more on creatures. You're running cards like Endurance, again, Food Chain, more creature tutors that you get access to, which Tivit does not get. And here's what a cEDH Atraxa deck list looks like. And last but not least, we have probably the most flexible commander in all of casual and cEDH, and that is Kenrith, the Returned King. Kenrith is often labeled as 5-color good stuff, but I would say in cEDH that's kind of not the case. It definitely can be, but Kenrith is a deck list that has a lot of different ways that you can build it. A lot of the decks are going to focus on dockside combos using cards like Emil or even Deadeye Navigator, or even looping with Kenrith's reanimation ability with cards like Mayhem Devil. So you can focus on doing things like looping Displacer Kitten, targeting your Eternal Witness or your docksides, making a bunch of mana. A lot of these decks are going to use Kenrith's ability with infinite mana to be able to make the entire table, draw their entire decks, and lose the game. You also have Kenrith decks that will run the Bomberman combo, which is using Auriok Salvagers with Lion's Eye Diamond. You can even see Kenrith decks that opt to like go for a very quick proactive game plan. It's usually not the fastest deck in the format, but it does have access to all 5 colors, being able to go dockside into ad nauseum, having access to all the tutors, having access to all the dorks, the very powerful win condition that we haven't touched on yet, Underworld Breach. So Kenrith can really be built to be what you want to be. If you want to be very focused on creature combos and sort of that mid-range grindy plan using your activated abilities for values, you absolutely can do that. You can focus it on just getting to run Intuition with Underworld Breach and Thassa's Oracle and just having all of the best good stuff and having that backup of that value generating commander. Again, we're not going to be seeing like politics cards. We're not going to be seeing the cutesy cards. This is really like you are building with the best cards that you have access to in this format kind of deck. So this is probably where the deck will differ the most from casual, but let's be honest, it's kind of a 5-color good stuff deck in casual, and really you're just taking that good stuff and making it the really good stuff. And here is what a cEDH Kenrith deck list might look like. Hopefully you found something in this video that you can enjoy. Any of these decks would be a great starting place for a cEDH player, especially again, if you have a lot of experience on a deck like Yuriko, a deck like Tivit, a deck like Kinnan. Going into cEDH, you're going to have a lot of that backbone of knowledge and play patterns that is going to help you here. And you're just going to have to adjust a little bit with a new card pool. cEDH and Casual Commander are still very much the same format. We run different cards. We try to focus on winning and very much try to avoid any of that salt related nonsense. You get to run good cards here. Everyone wants you to, everyone expects you to, and we're all going to have a great time. If you enjoyed this video, consider supporting me on Patreon, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you'd like to see in the future. And with all that being said, go try cEDH. Have a good one.